speak to us a bit about mentoring, and then I will be back to talk to us about how we're going to do our mentoring event this evening. So without any further ado, welcome Glain.
Thank you. So again, it's a pleasure to be here and be working with all of you tonight. I have a business that I founded 5 years ago called the Executive Roundtable, as you heard, and we do two main things. We have a mentoring program, which is a one-on-one program, and we have a peer mentoring program, because I actually think peer mentoring is one of the most underutilized tools that we have in our careers as leaders, things like that. We're very focused at the Executive Roundtable on the leadership space, and so if I slip into language around being a leader, and if you're a leader, please forgive me, it's what I work in 24/7. But I wanted to just talk to you. I was asked to come here and kick it off and tell you a little bit about why mentoring is important, but I think you probably all know that, right? Today we're in such a matrixed workplace. The job market is so complex, and really who you know, I was told this very early on in my career, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and I think so much of that continues to be very, very true today, and maybe even more so. And how we build these relationships and maintain these relationships over time and and throughout our career is pretty much research done around mentoring, and a lot of studies that they'll ask CEOs what's been the most crucial thing to your development, and continuously CEOs will cite having a mentor as being absolutely crucial to their career success. Value reflection. We undervalue that space, and I think mentoring and having mentoring type relationships which allow you to reflect, to think about what's really important, to decide whether that's the hill worth dying on, right? To really process what's going on in your life. Today more than ever, I think we're more critical. Do a mentoring event where you're going to meet some people, potentially find a mentor, maybe connect with people who can get you a mentor. So a few things I want you to keep in mind as you're thinking about this, and as you're thinking about adding mentors into your life, from my experience kind of running the programs we run. Number one thing I want you to think about, and I want you to start thinking about this now. What is your objective? What is your objective in wanting to find somebody to be your mentor? Okay, what is it that you're hoping to gain from that experience? Think about what your goal is, because there is nothing worse, and those of you who are mentors in the room, back me up on this, there is nothing worse than having a mentee who really doesn't know what they. Thinking about what your goals are, thinking about what you can offer in the mentoring relationship. What can you bring to that mentoring relationship? Whenever we do our program, it's always fascinating to me. Mentors will say, wow, I got as much out of this, I think I got more out of this experience than the mentee got, because there's so many things that this mentee brought to the table. So thinking about what you bring to the experience is really mission critical. And thinking about the difference, what are you looking for? Why do you want a mentor? Is it because you need to, and people will ask me all the time, well, what's the difference between a mentor and a coach? Like, should I really be trying to find a coach, or should I be working different skill sets? You might have mentors who are quite coach-like, and are helpful and, ask good questions. But on the mentoring side, for me personally, the definition is, I'm going to look for a mentor if I need to shortcut my learning. This person knows how to do it, and they can do it better, faster, quicker, have more contacts in that area than I have. Great opportunity to work with a mentor. If the mentor is somebody who can potentially make connections for me, they're connected, they can open doors, they know people who I don't know, they can expose me to things that I'm not aware of. Great, resource to use a mentor for. And another thing, I want to also get you to think about, you're not going to find the ideal mentor in one person, unless that person's superhuman. I've never met one myself. So you've got to think about multiple mentors. You've got to think about who do you know that if you've got these goals, one person might be really great at helping you advance on one, but you might need to have a couple of other people that have different perspectives. You might want to think about multiple forms of mentoring. So I shared with you we have a one-to-one program, which is a pretty traditional senior executive to up-and-coming executive being matched one-to-one. We also have peer mentoring, where you can be in a group of peers working together around your leadership. Both of those, the thing I sort of wanted to say in my experience about working with a mentor is if you're in this room, you may get some leads. You may hear people say, oh, you might want to call so-and-so. My advice would be, start with that introductory coffee. See if there's chemistry there. See if there's a connection. Don't pull out the M word. I don't think you need to put that on the table. And I think if you have a good connection in the first one, in my experience, I mean, we have a formalized program, it's very structured, but in my experience working with my own mentors, it leads on from there. If you're bringing value to the table each time you go in. So if every conversation you go into, you're prepared, you have a focus, you have some core questions that you want to ask your mentor, get their advice on, I'm sure they'll be happy to see you again. If you go in with no plan and no goal and no focus, they probably have other things that they could be doing. And that's when you'll start to, you probably won't get much traction in that relationship. So thinking about, going stealth, don't put them on the spot. I don't agree, I think those are things that involve organic. Before we kind of turn it over, I would open the floor to you guys. Are there some specific questions that you're curious about or working with a mentor? Or maybe you're a mentor and you're like, you know what, I'm not sure how to work with some mentees that I've got. I take a few questions from the floor. It's okay to be a mentor to more than one person at one time? Sure, if you've got the time. And I think sometimes if you're in an organization, you're doing internal mentoring, it could be a little bit tricky because the confidentiality thing might disappear. I mean, I think that's the challenge with internal mentoring programs is that I think it really depends on what your goal is. So if your goal is to learn more about that industry and that functional role, then it's going to be very important. If, we have a leadership mentoring program, and that doesn't necessarily come into play as much because it's more about your style as a leader and being mentored by somebody who has a different style than you, and it could be potentially from any industry or function. But again, that's where I go back to what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? But yeah, if you need to learn, like if I need to know how to go and open a business in China, I would like to talk to somebody who's done that and who's got experience and who can navigate that way for me, right? It's a shortcut piece. That's a good question. I mean, I think having, really being clear on what the focus is number one. And then for the first meeting, what I would actually really recommend doing is building the relationship. If you know, if this person, you've sort of set it up that you want them to be your mentor, or you've had that understanding that this is what the relationship is going to be about, I would actually in the first meeting spend time getting to know each other. And so there's a really great exercise that you can do together if you're up for this kind of thing, where you take take a piece of paper, draw a horizontal line across it, and plot your major life activities on the high side of your life and on the low side of your life. And then you talk to each other about, as a mentor, what have been some of your peak experiences that have been really positive, and some of your experiences that maybe didn't go as the way you wanted. And if both of you do that, you build the trust, you build the camaraderie between the two of you. Because the foundation of trust is probably the key thing. So I would almost say in your first meeting, if you just accomplished that, where you felt really good about this person, and you talked about how are we going to work together, can I call you if a crisis is coming up? And you said just some of those, it's like when you're building a team, right? It's like the really standard we're forming. What are the things we need to kind of cover off? That's what I try and attempt in the first meeting. And then the second meeting, you can dig more into your goals. You can highlight the goals in the first one, but the second one, then I'd really dig into the goals. What do they mean? And then you can start setting plans and follow through. Okay, so in our program, this is a really key thing. And so we really do it as a program, right? And I would say, if I was working with a mentor, I'd probably have the same conversation up front if I was doing it casually, which would be, these are my goals, and what I see is us working together for the next 12 months, or the next 6 months. And if you do that up at the start, then it's never going to be awkward, because that's the timeline you're working towards. Where it could get messy is if at 6 months you're not ready to let it go and you decide to keep going. But then I would really keep talking about it on a renewable, let's check in every 6 months and see if this is still working, right? And are you getting what you need? Am I getting what I need? Because the dynamics in a mentoring relationship, and those of you, we all have them, but the dynamics in a more formalized mentoring relationship, they start to change over time, right? And they start switching. And I know certainly, I probably worked with more coaches than mentors. And it's the same with hiring a coach. You kind of want to, after a while, you're like, okay, I'm done. So if you've got a period of time, it's nice that you can easily land. Okay, I'm getting the